My family refused to come to my son's birthday, saying they had something better to do. I smiled, canceled everything I was paying for them, and what happened next left them begging. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to see more stories like this. I'm David Chen, 35 years old, and I'll never forget the morning my 7-year-old son asked me the question that would change everything. We were sitting at our kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the windows of our modest 2-bedroom apartment. Tommy was carefully coloring an invitation card he'd made himself, his tongue poking out in concentration as he drew a dinosaur wearing a party hat. "Dad," he said without looking up from his artwork, "do you think Grandma and Grandpa will come to my birthday this year?" The hope in his voice made my chest tighten. This would be the 3rd year in a row he'd asked this question, and I already knew what the answer would be. But looking at his earnest face, at the careful way he was adding details to make the invitation special, I couldn't bring myself to prepare him for the disappointment that was coming. "I'm sure they'll try their best, buddy," I said, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. My parents, Richard and Helen Chen, lived just 40 minutes away in the house I'd grown up in, the same house whose mortgage I'd been secretly paying for the past 6 years. They had no idea, of course. As far as they were concerned, they were managing just fine on their own, even though my father's landscaping business had gone under during the recession, and my mother's part-time retail job barely covered groceries. My sister, Jennifer, lived even closer, just 20 minutes away in a trendy downtown loft. The loft I was also secretly paying for, along with her car payment and credit card bills. She was 32 and worked as a social media influencer, which as far as I could tell meant she took pictures of herself at expensive restaurants and somehow convinced brands to send her free products. The fact that her lifestyle cost far more than her income could support was a detail she'd never acknowledged. But Tommy didn't know any of this. He just knew that his grandparents and aunt rarely made time for him. Despite his repeated invitations and phone calls, he didn't understand why they always had something more important to do when it came to his school plays, his soccer games, or his birthdays. I started supporting my family financially after my father's business collapsed. It began innocently enough, with a loan to help them avoid foreclosure. But one loan became 2, then 3, and eventually I realized they would never pay me back. So I'd quietly taken over their mortgage payments, telling myself it was temporary, that they just needed time to get back on their feet. With Jennifer, it started when she called crying about an eviction notice. She'd quit another job, her 3rd that year, because her boss didn't understand her creative vision. I paid her back rent and first month of her new place, thinking it would be a one-time thing. But one time became every time, and before I knew it, I was funding her entire lifestyle while she posted photos with captions about manifesting abundance and living authentically. The worst part was the family betrayal I felt every time I saw how they treated my son. They'd come to family dinners at my parents' house, dinners I often catered because I knew their fridge was empty until my grocery deliveries arrived. They'd talk about their plans, their activities, their busy lives, and when Tommy would excitedly tell them about his upcoming birthday or school concert, they'd smile vaguely and say, "We'll see," or "That sounds nice, honey," before changing the subject. 3 weeks before Tommy's 8th birthday, I started planning his party. We were going to have it at the local park, with a dinosaur theme because Tommy was obsessed with paleontology. Nothing fancy, just cake, games, and a small group of his school friends. But Tommy had one specific request that he repeated every single day. "I want Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Jenny to be there," he said. "Please, Dad, it's important." I sent out the invitations 6 weeks in advance. I called my parents personally to make sure they got it. I texted Jennifer multiple times. I even marked it on the family calendar my mother kept in her kitchen, the one I'd seen during my weekly random visits when I'd drop off groceries and supplies disguised as extras from a work event. 2 weeks before the party, I still hadn't received any confirmations, so I called my mother while Tommy was at school. "Oh, David, about Tommy's birthday," she said, her voice distracted. I could hear the television in the background. "Your father and I have been meaning to talk to you about that." My stomach dropped. I already knew where this was going. "There's an estate sale that weekend," she continued. "You know how your father loves estate sales. This one is supposed to have vintage tools and garden equipment. He's very excited about it." "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "it's Tommy's 8th birthday. He's been asking about you and Dad for weeks. Can't the estate sale wait?" "Oh, David, don't be dramatic. Tommy will have plenty more birthdays. These estate sales only happen once. Besides, we'll celebrate with him another time. Another time that would never come. Just like all the other another times that had been promised over the years." I called Jennifer next. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding annoyed. "What's up? I'm in the middle of a photo shoot." "It's about Tommy's birthday party," I said. "Did you get the invitation?" "Oh, yeah, about that. I heard her talking to someone in the background, probably her photographer. I actually can't make it. Melissa is having this amazing brunch event that day, and she's introducing me to a potential sponsor. This could be huge for my brand, David. You understand, right?" "Your brand," I repeated flatly. "Yeah, she knows someone at a major cosmetics company. This could be my big break. Tommy will understand. He's just a kid. He probably won't even notice I'm not there." Something inside me went very cold and very quiet. It was a feeling I recognized from my years working in emergency management. The calm that settles over you when you realize a disaster is unfolding and you need to make critical decisions fast. "Right," I said. "Of course. Your brand is important. I knew you'd get it." She sounded relieved. "Tell Tommy Aunt Jenny will make it up to him, okay? Maybe I'll take him for ice cream next month or something. After hanging up, I sat in my car outside my office building for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. Around me, life continued as normal. People walked by with coffee cups, talked on their phones, laughed with colleagues, but inside my head, a very different conversation was happening. I thought about the $600,000 I'd paid toward my parents' mortgage over the past 6 years. I thought about the $48,000 I'd spent on Jennifer's lifestyle in just the past year alone. I thought about my own modest apartment, the vacation Tommy and I hadn't taken because I couldn't afford it, the school field trips I'd struggled to pay for while simultaneously funding my family's comfortable existence. And I thought about Tommy's face, the hope that lit up his eyes every time he talked about his birthday party, about having his whole family there to celebrate with him. That evening, I sat Tommy down for a talk I'd been dreading. "Buddy, I need to tell you something about your birthday party." He looked up from his homework, instantly alert to my serious tone. "What is it, Dad?" "Grandma and Grandpa can't make it. They have an estate sale that day." His face fell, "But I made them a special invitation." "I know you did. It was beautiful." "What about Aunt Jenny?" I hesitated, then decided he deserved honesty. "She has a work event." Tommy was quiet for a long moment, his small hands fidgeting with his pencil. When he finally spoke, his voice was very small. "Don't they love me, Dad?" That question, asked in such a vulnerable, heartbreaking tone, was the moment everything crystallized for me. This wasn't just about a birthday party. This was about years of emotional manipulation, of taking advantage of my generosity while giving nothing back, not even basic respect or consideration for a child who adored them. "They love you very much," I told him, pulling him into a hug even as I made a decision that would change all our lives. "But sometimes adults make bad choices, and sometimes there are consequences for those choices." That night, after Tommy went to bed, I opened my laptop and began making a series of calls and cancellations that I'd been too guilty, too conditioned, too afraid to make before. But something had shifted. The toxic family dynamic that had ruled my life for years suddenly seemed clear, and standing up for my son meant standing up for myself too. The first call I made was to my mortgage company. The woman on the phone from the mortgage company sounded confused when I explained what I needed. "Mr. Chen, just to clarify, you want to stop making payments on the property at 847 Maple Drive? The account shows you've been paying consistently for 6 years." "That's correct," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "I want to remove my automatic payment authorization effective immediately." "May I ask why?" "Your payment history has been perfect. The property owners can resume responsibility for their own mortgage," I said. "They're fully capable adults." There was a pause. "I see. Well, I'll process that right away. The property owners will receive notification that payments have stopped and they'll need to make arrangements." After hanging up, I stared at my phone for a long moment. 6 years of payments, gone with a single phone call. 6 years of sacrifice while my parents treated my generosity as an entitlement rather than a gift. The consequences of their choices were about to become very real. Next, I called the property management company that handled Jennifer's loft. "I need to cancel the automatic payment for Unit 312 at Harbor Lofts," I told the representative. "One moment, please," I heard typing. "Yes, I see that account. May I have your authorization code?" I provided it, along with my identification information. The payments had always come from my account, set up when Jennifer first moved in 3 years ago. She'd been so grateful back then, promising it would only be temporary, just until she got established in her influencer career. "The cancellation will take effect next billing cycle," the representative informed me. "The tenant will need to make arrangements for payment." "Understood," I said. I moved through the rest of my list with mechanical efficiency. Jennifer's car payment canceled. Her credit card that I'd been paying off every month removed from automatic payment. The insurance policy on my parents' car that I'd been covering canceled. The family cell phone plan that included all of them switched to individual accounts they'd have to manage themselves. With each cancellation, I felt lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I was finally standing up against this toxic family pattern. Heavier because I knew what was coming. The phone calls, the accusations, the emotional manipulation that would inevitably follow. But I also felt something else. Something I hadn't experienced in years when it came to my family. I felt powerful. For once, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix their problems or cushion their failures. For once, they would have to face the consequences of their own choices. The next morning, I took Tommy to school and headed to my office at the city's emergency management department. My job involved coordinating responses to disasters, managing resources during crises, and making difficult decisions under pressure. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was better at managing city emergencies than I'd been at managing my own family crisis. My colleague and friend Marcus noticed something different about me right away. "You look like you either slept amazing or didn't sleep at all," he commented, setting a coffee on my desk. "Which is it?" "Somewhere in between," I admitted. "I made some big decisions last night." "Good decisions or oh no decisions? Time will tell." I smiled slightly. But they felt right. The first phone call came at 11:30 that morning. My mother's name flashed on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called again 5 minutes later, then again 10 minutes after that. By noon, I had 7 missed calls from my mother, 3 from my father, and 12 text messages from Jennifer, each one more frantic than the last. Jennifer's messages escalated quickly. The first one was confused. "Hey, my rent payment got returned? What happened?" The next few were annoyed. "David, seriously, I need you to fix this. My landlord is going to charge me a late fee." By the 10th message, panic had set in. "OMG, David, my car payment bounced too. What is going going on? Call me right now. I didn't call. Instead, I sent a single text to the family group chat that included my parents and Jennifer. I will no longer be making financial payments on anyone's behalf. Each of you is responsible for your own expenses going forward. This decision is final. My phone exploded with responses. Mom, David, what are you talking about? What payments? Dad, son, I think there's been some confusion. Let's talk about this. Jennifer, are you kidding me right now? You can't just stop paying for things without warning. Mom, David, please call us. We need to understand what's happening. Jennifer, this is so unfair. You know I have that brand meeting this week. How am I supposed to focus on my career when you're pulling this? Dad, David, your mother is very upset. Whatever this is about, we can work it out. I put my phone on silent and returned to work. That afternoon, I had a meeting about emergency preparedness protocols for the upcoming storm season. As I discussed contingency plans and resource allocation, my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been in years. Standing up for myself and my son had given me a clarity of purpose that felt almost euphoric. Marcus caught me in the hallway after the meeting. Your phone has been lighting up like a Christmas tree all day. Everything okay? Family drama, I said. I finally set some boundaries. He nodded knowingly. Marcus had heard plenty about my family situation over the years. About time. How's that feel? Scary, I admitted, but also right. That evening, as I picked Tommy up from school, my phone showed 43 missed calls and over 60 text messages. The messages had progressed from confusion to anger to bargaining to outright panic. Jennifer, fine, I'm sorry, okay? I should have prioritized Tommy's party. Can we please just talk about this? Mom, David, the mortgage company called. They said our payment didn't go through. There must be some mistake with the bank. Can you check on that? Dad, son, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't how family handles disagreements. Jennifer, David, please. The landlord gave me a 3-day notice. I could get evicted. You can't do this to me. Mom, I called the bank and they said you stopped the payments. David, what is this about? Why would you do this? The emotional manipulation was exactly what I'd expected. No acknowledgement of years of taking advantage of my generosity. No recognition that they'd made their own choices. Just immediate panic that their comfortable lifestyle was threatened, followed by attempts to make me feel guilty for enforcing consequences. Tommy was unusually quiet on the drive home. When we got to our apartment, he sat down at the kitchen table where he'd been making those birthday invitations just weeks ago. Dad, are you okay? He asked. The question surprised me. Here was my 8-year-old son, the one who'd been hurt by their rejection, asking if I was okay. I'm okay, buddy, I said, sitting down next to him. Why do you ask? Your phone keeps buzzing. Is someone mad at you? I considered how much to tell him. Tommy was young, but he was also perceptive. He'd seen how his grandparents and aunt treated us. He'd felt the sting of their rejection repeatedly. Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Jenny are upset with me, I admitted. But sometimes doing the right thing makes people upset. Is it because they didn't come to my party? It's because of a lot of things, Tommy. But yes, that was part of it. He was quiet for a moment, processing. Are they going to come to my party now? No, buddy. I don't think they will. His face fell slightly, but he nodded. That's okay. My friends from school will be there, and you'll be there. I'll always be there, I promised, pulling him into a hug. That night, after Tommy was asleep, I finally listened to my voicemails. There were 22 of them. My mother's voice progressed from confused to hurt to angry. David, I don't understand what's happening. The mortgage company says our payment didn't go through. Can you please call me back? Then later, David, I know you're upset about something, but this is serious. We could lose the house. And finally, David Chen, you call me back right now. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing, but this is not acceptable. My father's messages were shorter but more direct. Son, call me now. And then, David, I don't appreciate being blindsided like this. Whatever issue you have, we need to discuss it like adults. Jennifer's voicemails were the most dramatic. She cried through several of them, her voice high-pitched and panicked. David, please, you can't do this to me. I'll lose everything. My apartment, my car, my whole life. Please call me back. Please. Then anger crept in. You know what? This is so typical of you. You've always been jealous of my success. This is just you trying to sabotage me because you can't stand that I'm living my dream. I deleted each voicemail without responding. Their reactions told me everything I needed to know. Not one of them had asked about Tommy. Not one had acknowledged that their refusal to attend his birthday was what triggered this. Not one had taken any responsibility for years of taking my support for granted. It was all about them, their panic, their anger, their inconvenience. The family betrayal ran deeper than I'd even realized. The next 3 days brought increasingly desperate attempts at contact. My parents showed up at my office, but security wouldn't let them pass the lobby without my approval, which I didn't give. Jennifer tried to show up at Tommy's school, but the office staff, following the approved pickup list I'd provided, didn't allow her access. The text messages became more manipulative. My mother tried guilt. Your father hasn't slept in 3 days. His blood pressure is through the roof. If something happens to him, it will be on your conscience. Jennifer tried anger. I can't believe you'd throw away family over some stupid misunderstanding. You're being incredibly selfish and petty. Then my father tried reason. David, I understand you're upset. Let's sit down and talk about this like rational adults. Surely we can work something out. But underlying all their messages was the same fundamental misunderstanding. They thought this was about money. They thought if they just apologized or explained or reasoned with me enough, I'd cave and restore their funding. They didn't understand that this wasn't about the money at all. This was about respect. This was about my son. This was about years of being treated as a backup plan rather than a family member. This was about standing up and saying that consequences exist for hurtful choices. 5 days before Tommy's birthday, my mother made one more attempt. She sent a text message that was clearly calculated to hit every emotional button she could find. David, please, I'm begging you. Your father and I have an appointment with the bank tomorrow about the foreclosure process. We could lose the house we've lived in for 35 years. The house you grew up in. All your childhood memories are in this house. Is this really what you want? Is some hurt feelings worth destroying your family? I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned for years to be the family problem solver, wanted to give in, wanted to call her back and fix everything, wanted to make everyone happy again, even at my own expense. But then I thought about Tommy asking if they loved him. I thought about the small, hurt voice of my child, wondering why he wasn't important enough for his own family to show up. And I knew that giving in now would teach him the wrong lesson. It would teach him that it's okay for people to treat you badly as long as they're family, that your worth is measured by what you can provide for others, that standing up for yourself is wrong. I responded with a single sentence. You chose an estate sale over your grandson's birthday. These are the consequences of that choice. Her reply came instantly. That's what this is about? A child's birthday party? David, you're destroying our lives over something so trivial? And there it was, the fundamental disconnect that had always existed between us. To them, Tommy's feelings, Tommy's importance, Tommy's worth were trivial. An estate sale was important. Jennifer's brunch with a potential sponsor was important. But a little boy's birthday, his explicit request to have his family there, that was trivial. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Tommy's birthday arrived on a bright Saturday morning. I woke him up with pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, his favorite. He bounced around the apartment with excitement, listing all the games we'd play at the park and all the friends who'd be there. Can we set up the tables early, Dad? He asked, syrup on his chin. I want everything to be perfect. Absolutely, buddy. We'll get there an hour early and make it the best dinosaur party ever. As we loaded the car with decorations, party supplies, and the custom dinosaur cake I'd ordered from the local bakery, my phone buzzed with a final attempt from my mother. David, please reconsider. We made a mistake. We'll come to the party. We'll make it up to Tommy. Just please, we need to talk about the house situation. I read it twice, looking for any acknowledgement of actual wrongdoing, any genuine apology that wasn't attached to their financial panic. There was none. They'd come to the party now, not because they realized they'd hurt their grandson, but because they needed something from me. I put the phone in my pocket without responding and focused on my son, who was carefully arranging plastic dinosaurs in a box to use as party decorations. At the park, Tommy and I transformed a picnic area into a prehistoric paradise. We hung streamers in green and brown, set up tables with dinosaur tablecloths, and created a fossil dig area using a sandbox I'd filled with hidden plastic dinosaur bones. Tommy had helped me plan every detail over the past month, his enthusiasm never wavering even after learning his grandparents and aunt wouldn't be there. His friends started arriving at 2 o'clock. 8-year-olds poured out of cars, each one greeted by Tommy with genuine excitement. There was Marcus's daughter Sarah, Tommy's best friend from school. There was Jake and Michael from his soccer team. There was Emma, who shared Tommy's love of paleontology and brought him a book about velociraptors. Parents dropped off their kids with promises to return in 2 hours. Several of them had met my parents at school events before and asked about them. Will your mom and dad be joining us? Asked Sarah's mother, looking around. They couldn't make it today, I said simply. Family commitment. She nodded, accepting the explanation without question, and left to run errands before pickup time. Marcus stayed, having taken the day off to help me manage 10 energetic 8-year-olds. As the party got underway with games and laughter, he pulled me aside. How are you holding up? He asked quietly. Better than I expected, I admitted. It helps that Tommy seems genuinely happy. He's a good kid, resilient. Marcus watched Tommy explaining dinosaur facts to his friends with animated gestures. Takes after his dad that way. At 3 o'clock, just as we were bringing out the cake, a car pulled into the parking lot. My stomach dropped when I recognized it. My parents' sedan, the one I'd been paying insurance on until 5 days ago. My mother got out first, carrying a wrapped present. My father followed, looking uncomfortable. Jennifer emerged from the back seat in an outfit that probably cost more than Tommy's entire party, her phone already out and recording. Tommy saw them and his face lit up. Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Jenny, you came. He started running toward them, but I intercepted him gently. Hold on, buddy. Let me talk to them first. I walked over to where they stood at the edge of the picnic area. My mother's face was set in a tight smile, the kind she used at church when she wanted to appear gracious. My father's jaw was clenched. Jennifer kept filming, probably planning to post about what a devoted aunt she was. What are you doing here? I asked quietly, keeping my voice level. We're here for our grandson's birthday, my mother said, her voice artificially bright. We decided we could make it work after all. This isn't about Tommy, I said. This is about your mortgage. My father stepped forward. David, we need to talk. The bank has started foreclosure proceedings. We've got 30 days to bring the account current, or we lose everything. Then I suggest you figure out how to make your mortgage payments, I replied. We can't, my mother hissed, her fake smile dropping. You know we can't. Your father's income barely covers utilities. This is our home, David. Your home growing up. It stopped being my responsibility the moment you chose an estate sale over your grandson. Jennifer finally lowered her phone. Oh my God, you're actually serious about this. You're really going to let them lose their house over a kid's birthday party? I'm going to let them face the consequences of their choices, I corrected. Just like you're going to face face the consequences of yours. How's the eviction notice going, by the way? Her face flushed red. You're such an asshole. You know I was building my career. That meeting could have changed everything. And Tommy's 8th birthday was something he'd been looking forward to for months. Your career meeting was more important than that? Yes, she snapped, then seemed to realize how that sounded. I mean, he's a kid. He doesn't understand how important these opportunities are. He understands that his family didn't think he was important enough to show up. My mother tried a different approach, her voice softening. David, sweetheart, please. We made a mistake. We should have come. We're here now. Can't we just move past this? You're not here because you realized you made a mistake, I said. You're here because you need something from me. If I was still paying your bills, would you have shown up today? The guilty flicker in her eyes was answer enough. Tommy had been watching from the picnic tables. His earlier excitement dimmed. He walked over slowly, holding a plastic stegosaurus in his hand. Hi, Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Jenny, he said quietly. My mother immediately crouched down, her face transformed into exaggerated delight. Happy birthday, sweetheart. We brought you a present. She held out the wrapped box. Tommy looked at it, then at me, then back at them. Why did you come? He asked. My mother's smile faltered. What do you mean, honey? We came for your birthday, but you said you had something more important to do. Tommy continued, his voice small but clear. You said you'd come another time. Well, we changed our plans, my father interjected. That's what family does. We make sacrifices for each other. Like Dad's sacrifices? Tommy asked. The question hung in the air. My parents exchanged confused glances. What do you mean, sweetheart? My mother asked carefully. Dad tells me that family helps each other, Tommy explained. He says that's what love means, helping when someone needs it. That's right, my father agreed, clearly not understanding where this was going. So, when you needed help, Dad helped you? Tommy persisted. I saw the moment my mother realized that Tommy knew something. Her eyes widened slightly, darting to me. Tommy, honey, that's grown-up business. But it's okay to talk about it, right? If it's about family helping family? Tommy looked up at me. Dad, is it okay to tell them? I looked at my son, at his earnest face, trying to make sense of the toxic family dynamics he'd been caught in. Then I looked at my parents and sister, at their mounting panic as they realized their situation was more exposed than they'd thought. It's okay, buddy, I said. The truth usually is. Tommy turned back to them. Dad's been paying for your house. He told me that's why we couldn't go to Disneyland last year. He said family comes first. My mother's face went white. Jennifer's mouth fell open. My father actually took a step backward. He pays for Aunt Jenny's apartment too, Tommy continued innocently, and her car. He said it was important to help family even when it's hard. Tommy, that's enough, my mother said sharply, then seemed to catch herself. I mean, those are private matters, sweetheart. But if it's family helping family, why is it private? Tommy asked, genuinely confused. Dad helps you. Why can't I tell you that? Marcus had walked over, sensing the tension. Several of Tommy's friends had noticed too, going quiet as children do when they sense adult conflict. You told him? Jennifer hissed at me. You told an 8-year-old child about our financial arrangements? I didn't tell him the amounts or the details, I said calmly. But yes, when he asked why we couldn't afford certain things, I explained that I was helping family members who needed support. I believe in honesty. Honesty? My father's voice rose. You want to talk about honesty? Then let's be honest. You're holding our home hostage because your feelings got hurt. Richard, not here, my mother warned, glancing at the other party guests. But my father was too angry to stop. You've made your point, David. We should have come to Tommy's party. We apologize. Now can we please discuss the mortgage situation like reasonable adults? There's nothing to discuss, I said. You're both adults with income. You can pay your own mortgage. We can't, my mother said desperately. You know we can't. Please, David, we're begging you. Standing up against them, seeing them finally acknowledge what I'd been doing for years, should have felt satisfying. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the emotional manipulation. Tired of being seen as a bank rather than a son. Tired of watching my child learn that love in this family was conditional and transactional. I've been paying your mortgage for 6 years, I said quietly. 6 years during which you couldn't spare 3 hours for your grandson's birthday. 6 years during which you treated my generosity as an entitlement. 6 years during which you never once said thank you. We didn't know, my mother protested weakly. You didn't want to know, I corrected. You never asked where the money was coming from. You never questioned how you were suddenly able to keep the house despite having no income to cover the payments. You chose not to know because that was more comfortable. Jennifer jumped in, her voice shrill. What about me? I lost my apartment, David. I'm staying with a friend on her couch. My car got repossessed. My whole life is falling apart. Your whole life was built on someone else's money, I said bluntly. It was never really yours to begin with. I can't believe this, she said, her voice breaking. I can't believe you do this to your own family. Tommy tugged on my sleeve. Dad, my friends are watching. He was right. The party had gone completely still. 8-year-olds stood frozen, holding dinosaurs and half-eaten cake, their eyes wide as they witnessed a family falling apart. I looked at my parents, at Jennifer, at the consequences finally catching up to years of taking advantage. Then I looked at Tommy, at the party we'd worked so hard to create, at his friends who'd shown up because they cared about him. You need to leave, I said firmly. This is Tommy's party, and you're not here because you care about him. You're here because you want something from me. David, please, my mother tried once more. Leave, I repeated, and don't contact me again unless you're ready to apologize to Tommy, not to me, to him, for missing his birthday without his needs being tied to your financial situation. They stood there for another moment, clearly hoping I'd change my mind. When I didn't, my father grabbed my mother's arm. "Let's go," he muttered. "This is clearly pointless." Jennifer followed them, pausing to hiss at me. "This isn't over, David. Family doesn't just abandon family." "You're right," I agreed. "Family doesn't abandon family. You abandoned Tommy when you chose brunch over his birthday. I'm just stopping enabling you to keep doing it." After they drove away, Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. "That was rough." "Yeah," I agreed, watching their car disappear down the street. Tommy looked up at me, his earlier excitement replaced with worry. "Dad, are you okay?" I knelt down to his level. "I'm okay, buddy. Are you okay?" He thought about it seriously, then nodded. "Can we still have cake?" Just like that. The resilience of children. The ability to acknowledge the difficult moment and then move forward to the next thing. I could learn from that. "We can absolutely have cake," I said, pulling him into a hug. "Let's get back to your party." As Tommy ran back to his friends, who immediately resumed their games with the adaptability of the young, Marcus stayed beside me. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now?" I watched my son laugh as he showed his friends the fossil dig. "Now, I focus on the family that actually matters." The week following Tommy's birthday party brought a strange calm. No phone calls, no text messages, no surprise visits. For the first time in 6 years, my life existed without the constant undercurrent of managing my family's financial crises. I threw myself into work and focused on Tommy. We established new routines, simple things that had been impossible when I was stretched thin financially and emotionally. Pizza and movie nights on Fridays, weekend hikes at the state park, evening walks where Tommy would tell me about his day in exhaustive 8-year-old detail. "Dad, did you know that the T-Rex had really good eyesight?" Tommy asked during one of our walks. "Like, better than eagles. Most people think they had bad vision, but that's wrong." "I didn't know that," I said, smiling at his enthusiasm. "Yeah, and also, Sarah's dad said we could go to the Natural History Museum next month. Can we go, please?" "Of course we can, buddy." "Cool." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Dad, are Grandma and Grandpa mad at you?" The question didn't surprise me. Tommy was perceptive enough to understand that something significant had shifted in our family dynamics, even if he didn't grasp all the details. "They're upset," I answered honestly. "But sometimes people get upset when they face consequences for their choices." "Is it because of the money?" "It's because they took my help for granted and didn't respect you or me. The money was just how I was helping them." Tommy considered this, his small hand warm in mine. "I'm glad you don't help them anymore if they were mean to you." "They weren't exactly mean," I tried to explain. "It's more complicated than that. But they hurt your feelings. And they hurt my feelings when they didn't come to my party the first time." "That's being mean, isn't it?" "Out of the mouths of children. Sometimes the simplest perspective is the most accurate." "Yeah, buddy," I agreed. "I guess it is." 2 weeks after the party, reality caught up with my parents in a way that apparently couldn't be ignored. I received a certified letter at my office, delivered by a courier who had me sign multiple forms acknowledging receipt. Inside was a formal notice from their attorney, a man named Gerald Hutchins, whose letterhead screamed small-town lawyer trying to appear intimidating. The letter informed me that my parents were exploring all legal options to compel financial support from their son, and that my sudden and malicious withdrawal of funds had caused them severe emotional and financial distress. I read it twice, then called my own attorney, Patricia Wong, whom I'd consulted when setting up Tommy's trust fund after his mother died. "Patricia, I need advice on something," I said after exchanging pleasantries. "Family issue?" she guessed. She'd heard enough about my situation over the years to read between the lines. "My parents are threatening to sue me for cutting off financial support I was providing voluntarily." There was a pause, then a short laugh. "They're threatening what now?" "Apparently, their lawyer thinks they have grounds to compel me to keep paying their mortgage." "David, unless you signed a contract obligating yourself to provide support, or unless they can prove you created some kind of legal dependency, they have absolutely no case. Adult children are not legally responsible for their parents' debts or living expenses." That's what I thought, but I wanted to be sure. "Forward me the letter. I'll draft a response that should make their attorney explain to them how the law actually works. This is almost certainly just an intimidation tactic. What should I do in the meantime?" "Nothing. Don't engage. Don't respond directly to your parents. Let me handle it through proper legal channels. And David, document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. If they try to escalate this, you'll want a paper trail." After hanging up with Patricia, I forwarded her the letter and then sat back in my chair, processing this new development. Part of me had hoped that my parents would eventually understand and perhaps even acknowledge their behavior. Instead, they'd chosen to double down, to attempt to legally force me to continue supporting them. The realization hurt less than I'd expected. Maybe I was finally accepting what Tommy had so simply identified. They'd been mean, they'd hurt us, and now they were refusing to take any responsibility for it. Marcus knocked on my office door. "Emergency management meeting in 10 minutes. You ready?" "Ready," I confirmed, pushing thoughts of family betrayal aside to focus on the job I was actually good at. That evening, Tommy and I were making tacos for dinner when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "David Chen?" a woman's voice asked, speaking. "This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling about a wellness check request we received for your address." My stomach dropped. "A wellness check?" "Yes, sir. We received a call from a Jennifer Chen claiming to be your sister. She expressed concern that you might be experiencing a mental health crisis and potentially putting your son in danger." I closed my eyes, feeling rage bubble up in my chest. "Detective, I assure you, I'm perfectly fine. My son is perfectly fine. This is harassment from family members who are unhappy that I stopped providing them financial support. I see. Her tone shifted slightly, becoming less formal. Would you be willing to speak with me briefly? I need to confirm the welfare of any minor children involved when we receive these types of calls. Of course. Would you like to come by? I'm happy to show you that my son is healthy and well cared for. That won't be necessary. Can you put your son on the phone briefly? I handed the phone to Tommy, explaining that a police detective just wanted to say hello. He took it cheerfully, apparently unbothered by the strange request. Hello? Yes, this is Tommy. I'm 8. No, my dad's really nice. We're making tacos. Yeah, with ground beef and cheese. Uh-huh. Okay, bye. He handed the phone back to me. Mr. Chen, Detective Morrison said, your son sounds healthy and happy. For the record, I'm noting that this appears to be a false report. If you receive any more harassment from your sister, I'd suggest filing for a restraining order. Thank you, Detective. After hanging up, I looked at Tommy, who had gone back to shredding cheese with single-minded focus. Tommy, did Aunt Jenny ever ask you questions about me? About how I treat you? Or whether you're happy at home? He looked up, thinking. Last month at Grandma's house, she asked if you ever got mad at me. I said only when I don't clean my room or do my homework. She asked if you ever hit me. I said no, because you don't. Why? The emotional manipulation had apparently extended to trying to create false concerns about child welfare. Jennifer, faced with the consequences of losing her funded lifestyle, had escalated to the point of potentially involving Child Protective Services. I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia, need to discuss restraining order. Family member just filed false CPS report. Her response came immediately. Call me tomorrow morning. We'll file paperwork this week. That night, after putting Tommy to bed, I sat at my kitchen table and did something I'd been avoiding. I calculated exactly how much money I'd spent supporting my family over the years. Mortgage payments for my parents, $600,000 over 6 years. Jennifer's rent, $42,000 per year for 3 years, totaling $126,000. Jennifer's car payments, $18,000. Credit cards, insurance, phone bills, miscellaneous expenses, roughly $60,000. The total came to just over $800,000. $800,000 that could have been Tommy's college fund. $800,000 that could have been our house, our vacations, our future security. I'd sacrificed nearly $1 million for family members who couldn't spare 3 hours for my son's birthday party. The numbers stared back at me from the spreadsheet, stark and undeniable. For the first time, seeing it calculated so precisely, I felt not guilt for cutting them off, but anger that I'd allowed it to go on so long. Anger at myself for enabling this toxic family dynamic. Anger at them for taking advantage so completely. But I also felt something else. Relief. The money was gone, yes, but the obligation was also gone. The constant worry about their problems was gone. The guilt of never doing enough was gone. Standing up for myself and Tommy had freed us both. 3 days later, Patricia called with an update. Their attorney withdrew the demand letter, she said, satisfaction clear in her voice. Apparently after I explained the relevant case law and mentioned that we were prepared to countersue for harassment and defamation, Mr. Hutchins advised his clients to pursue other options. What other options do they have? Realistically, getting jobs, downsizing their lifestyle, taking responsibility for their own finances. You know, adult things. I don't suppose they see it that way. Based on Mr. Hutchins's tone, I suspect he tried to explain that to them and didn't get very far. People who've been enabled for years rarely accept accountability easily. What about the restraining order against Jennifer? Drafted and ready to file. Given the false CPS report, the judge should approve it without issue. She'll be prohibited from contacting you or Tommy directly or through third parties. Do I need to appear in court? Not unless she contests it, which would be foolish given the documented evidence. I'll handle the filing this afternoon. After hanging up, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I was still carrying. Legal protection against further harassment, professional documentation that my parents had no case, consequences finally being enforced after years of boundary violations. That weekend, Tommy had a soccer game. I sat in the bleachers with the other parents, cheering as 8-year-olds chased a ball around the field, with more enthusiasm than coordination. Marcus was there with Sarah, who played on Tommy's team. During halftime, one of the other parents, a woman named Carol, whose son was Tommy's teammate, sat down next to me. I hope this isn't overstepping, she said carefully, but I wanted you to know that several of us parents have been really impressed by how you've handled everything with your family. I blinked, surprised. How did you know about that? Small community, she said with a sympathetic smile. Word gets around, especially when someone's grandmother makes a scene at a child's birthday party. But more than that, Tommy's teacher mentioned at the parent conference that he's really blossomed lately. More confident, happier, participating more in class. He's been doing great, I agreed, watching Tommy run across the field. My ex-husband's family was very controlling, Carol continued. They used financial pressure to try to dictate how I raised my kids. It took me years to stand up to them, and even longer to stop feeling guilty about it. So I just wanted to say, what you did, setting those boundaries, that takes real strength. You're showing Tommy that it's okay to stand up for yourself, even when it's hard, especially when it's family. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For weeks, I'd been questioning whether I'd done the right thing, whether I'd been too harsh, whether standing up for Tommy and myself was worth the complete fracture of family relationships. Thank you, I managed. I needed to hear that. We're all just doing our best, she said, standing up as the second half started. But some of us are doing better than we give ourselves credit for. As I watched Tommy play, laughing with his teammates, completely absorbed in the game, I realized Carol was right. Tommy wasn't anxious anymore about disappointing grandparents who never showed up. He wasn't confused about why Aunt Jenny made promises she never kept. He was just being a kid, playing soccer with his friends, secure in the knowledge that the one parent he had was reliable and present. The consequences of my family's choices were playing out exactly as they should. They were facing their financial realities. They were experiencing the natural results of taking someone for granted. And Tommy and I were free to build a life based on mutual respect and genuine care, rather than obligation and manipulation. For the first time in 6 years, I felt like I could breathe fully. 6 weeks after Tommy's birthday party, Marcus called me into his office at work. His expression was serious enough that my first thought was that something had gone wrong with a project. "Close the door," he said, which immediately elevated my concern. I sat down across from his desk. "What's going on?" He pulled out his phone and turned it toward me. On the screen was a local news article with the headline, "Local Family Faces Foreclosure After Son Cuts Off Support." My stomach dropped as I read. The article featured an interview with my parents, complete with a photo of them standing in front of their house looking devastated. My mother was quoted extensively about her ungrateful son who had abandoned them in their time of need. My father discussed how family betrayal had left them homeless. Jennifer was mentioned as another victim of my cruelty, having lost her apartment and car. The article painted me as a villain who'd heartlessly cut off elderly parents over a minor disagreement. There was no mention of Tommy's birthday, no mention of years of taking advantage, no mention that I'd been supporting them voluntarily, not through any legal obligation. Just a sob story designed to make them look like victims. "There's more," Marcus said, scrolling down. The article had generated hundreds of comments, most of them attacking me by name. People calling me selfish, heartless, suggesting I should be ashamed. Several comments mentioned they'd be avoiding my workplace because they didn't want to support someone who treated family that way. "Has administration seen this?" I asked. "The director wants to meet with you this afternoon, 3 o'clock. I spent the next few hours in a haze of anger and anxiety. My parents had taken their emotional manipulation public, weaponizing community sympathy to paint themselves as victims. The consequences I'd tried to enforce were being reframed as abuse. At 3 o'clock, I sat in Director Martinez's office, trying to remain calm. "David, I want to be clear that this doesn't affect your job security," she began. "Your work here has been exemplary, but this article has generated some negative attention toward the department. I understand. For the record, the article is extremely misleading. I assumed as much. Can you give me your side?" I explained everything. The years of financial support, the missed birthday party, Tommy's hurt, the decision to enforce boundaries. By the time I finished, Director Martinez was nodding. "That's quite different from how they presented it," she said. "Do you have documentation?" "My attorney has everything. Bank records, text messages, the works." "Good. I'd suggest you prepare a response. The court of public opinion can be vicious, but facts tend to win out eventually. In the meantime, we'll issue a statement that this is a private family matter and doesn't reflect on your professional capabilities. Thank you." As I left her office, my phone buzzed with a call from Patricia. "I saw the article," she said without preamble. "We need to respond, but carefully. Can you come to my office today?" An hour later, I sat in Patricia's conference room as she outlined our options. "We could sue for defamation," she explained. "The article contains several provably false statements, but litigation is expensive and time-consuming. Alternatively, we could provide the local paper with documentation proving your side of the story and request a follow-up article. What do you recommend?" "Both. File the defamation suit to show you're serious, but also give the paper enough information to correct the record. Public opinion matters, and right now, they've controlled the narrative." "Do it," I agreed. Over the next 2 days, Patricia worked her magic. She provided the newspaper with carefully selected documentation, bank records showing my payments, text messages showing my family's refusal to attend Tommy's birthday, screenshots of Jennifer's Instagram posts from the day of the party, showing her at a brunch event. Most damaging of all was the certified letter from their attorney demanding continued payment, which proved they'd known I was supporting them and had come to expect it. The follow-up article ran 3 days later with the headline, "Family Feud Has Two Sides. Man Responds to Foreclosure Claims." This article was more balanced, presenting my documentation and explaining that I'd voluntarily supported my family for years before stopping after they missed my son's birthday, despite his repeated requests for them to attend. The reporter noted that adult children have no legal obligation to support parents, and that my family had threatened legal action when payments stopped. The comments section shifted dramatically. People who'd attacked me before were now defending my decision. Many shared their own stories of toxic family dynamics and enabling behavior. Several praised me for standing up for my son. My mother called within an hour of the article posting. I let it go to voicemail. "David, this article makes us look terrible." Her voice was shrill. "You've humiliated us in front of the entire community. Our neighbors are talking. The people at church are judging us. You need to call that reporter and tell them the truth." I deleted the voicemail without responding. Jennifer sent a series of increasingly frantic text messages, all of which I forwarded to Patricia per her instructions. "You destroyed my reputation. No one will work with me now. Brands are dropping me. You've ruined my career." The irony that her career had been funded by my money seemed lost on her. My father's message was shorter, but more ominous. "You've gone too far, David. Don't think this is over." That evening, as I made dinner with Tommy, he asked about the articles. Kids at school had apparently been talking, repeating things their parents had said. "Dad, Jake said his mom said you're doing the right thing, but Emma said her grandmother grandmother said you're mean to Grandma and Grandpa, which is true. I sat down at the table with him, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes when people face consequences for their behavior, they try to make themselves look like victims. Grandma and Grandpa told a newspaper that I was mean to them, but they didn't tell the whole story. So I told the whole story. What's the whole story? That I helped them for a long time, and they took it for granted. And when they hurt your feelings by not coming to your birthday, I decided I needed to stop helping people who didn't appreciate it. Tommy thought about this. So you're not mean. I try not to be, but standing up for yourself sometimes looks like being mean to people who are used to getting their way. He nodded, accepting this explanation with the straightforward logic of childhood. Okay, can we have mac and cheese with dinner? The next week brought the foreclosure sale of my parents' house. I didn't attend, but Marcus did, out of morbid curiosity and a desire to report back what happened. It was sad, he admitted over coffee. Your parents were there, looking devastated. Your dad tried to appeal to the crowd, asking if anyone would delay the sale. No one did. The house sold for about 2/3 of its market value. Where are they going? I heard someone mention they'd found a small apartment on the other side of town. Much smaller than the house, obviously. I felt a pang of something. Not quite guilt, but not quite satisfaction either. They were facing real consequences now. Their comfortable life was gone, replaced by a stark reality they'd avoided for 6 years because of my support. Your sister was there too, Marcus added. She was filming the whole thing on her phone, crying about how cruel the system is. Pretty sure she was planning to use it for content. Even in losing everything, Jennifer was trying to monetize the situation. Some people never learn. 2 days after the foreclosure, I received a text from an unknown number. This is your mother. My phone was disconnected, so I'm using a friend's phone. Please, David, your father has been hospitalized. Heart attack. He's asking for you. I stared at the message, feeling a war of emotions. Part of me wanted to rush to the hospital. Part of me suspected this was another manipulation tactic. Part of me worried it might be real, and I'd regret not going. I called Patricia. It could be legitimate, she said carefully. Or it could be an attempt to get you face to face so they can pressure you. What do you want to do? I need to know if it's real, I decided. Patricia called the hospital directly, speaking with someone in administration. After 15 minutes, she called me back. Your father was admitted yesterday afternoon with chest pains. He's stable in the cardiac unit. It appears to be stress-related rather than a major cardiac event, but it is real. Should I go? That's entirely up to you. But if you do, I'd suggest going during visiting hours when there are other people around, not in the middle of the night when they could corner you. And don't make any promises or commitments while you're there. That afternoon, I left Tommy with Marcus and drove to the hospital. I told myself I was going to check on my father's health, not to reconcile. Standing up for myself didn't mean I wanted him to die. I found his room and knocked softly. My mother opened the door, her face lighting up with hope when she saw me. David, you came. Oh, thank God. Your father will be so relieved. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back, maintaining distance. I came to check on his condition. How is he? Her face fell slightly at my cool tone. He's resting. The doctor says it was anxiety-induced. The stress of losing the house, the financial pressure. It all became too much. The implication was clear. This was my fault. His health crisis was another consequence I should feel guilty about. I walked to the bedside where my father lay, looking smaller and older than I remembered. His eyes opened when I approached. David, he said weakly. You came. How are you feeling? Like I've lost everything, he said, his voice rough. My home, my dignity, my health, all because my son decided to punish us. And there it was, even from a hospital bed, facing the consequences of his own choices. He couldn't take responsibility. It was still my punishment, not his actions. I didn't punish you, I said quietly. I stopped enabling you. There's a difference. We're your parents, my mother interjected. You owe us respect, support. We raised you. You did raise me, I agreed. And I've more than repaid that obligation. $600,000 worth of mortgage payments. But apparently, that wasn't enough. You couldn't even show up for 3 hours at your grandson's birthday party. My father closed his eyes. We made a mistake about the party. We've apologized. You apologized after you needed something from me. That's not the same as genuine remorse. What do you want from us? My mother demanded, her voice rising. Do you want us to beg, to grovel? Will that satisfy you? I want you to acknowledge that you took advantage of me for years. I want you to recognize that Tommy deserves better treatment than you gave him. I want you to take responsibility for your own choices instead of blaming everyone else. They were both silent for a long moment. Finally, my father spoke. We didn't take advantage. You offered to help. We accepted. That's how family works. And there it was, the fundamental disconnect that would never bridge. They genuinely believed that accepting help gave them no obligation to appreciate it, respect it, or consider the person providing it. Family meant I owed them everything while they owed me nothing. I hope you recover fully, I said, turning toward the door. But I'm done, Dad. I'm done funding your lifestyle. I'm done being taken for granted. I'm done letting you hurt my son. The consequences you're facing now are natural results of your choices, not my cruelty. David! Wait! My mother called, but I was already walking out. In the hallway, I passed Jennifer, who was heading toward the room. She saw me and her face twisted with anger. Satisfied now? She hissed. Dad had a heart attack because of you. Dad had a heart attack because of stress he created for himself by living beyond his means for years, I replied calmly. I just stopped funding the illusion. You're heartless. I'm finally putting my son first. If that makes me heartless in your eyes, I can live with that. I walked past her and out of the hospital, breathing in the cool evening air. I'd gone to check on my father, had confirmed he'd survive, and had given them one last chance to show accountability. responsibility. They'd chosen, again, to blame me instead. 6 months later, Tommy and I stood in the doorway of our new house. Not an apartment, but an actual house with 3 bedrooms, a backyard, and enough space for Tommy to finally have a proper play area for his ever-growing dinosaur collection. "This is really ours?" Tommy asked for the 3rd time that day, his eyes wide as he ran from room to room. "Really ours," I confirmed, watching him explore with unbridled joy. The down payment had come from the money I'd been saving over the past 6 months, money that would have previously gone to supporting my family's lifestyle. For the first time in years, my income was actually mine to manage, and the financial freedom was staggering. Marcus helped us move in, along with several other parents from Tommy's soccer team. Carol brought pizza for everyone. Sarah's dad assembled Tommy's new bed frame. It felt like a real community, people showing up because they genuinely cared, not because they expected something in return. "You've come a long way," Marcus said as we carried boxes into the garage. "How are you feeling about everything?" "Good," I answered honestly. "Really good, actually. It's like I've been holding my breath for years and can finally exhale." "Any word from your family?" I shook my head. After the hospital visit, there had been a few more attempts at contact. My mother sent letters that my attorney advised me not to open without her present. Jennifer created a fake social media account to try to reach me before I blocked it. My father apparently told other family members that I was dead to him, but mostly there was silence. They'd moved into their small apartment across town. Jennifer was living with a friend, working an actual job for the first time in years at a retail store. According to distant relatives who still kept in touch, none of them had learned anything from the experience. They still blamed me, still painted themselves as victims, still refused to acknowledge their role in what had happened. And strangely, I was okay with that. I'd spent months hoping they'd eventually understand, eventually apologize genuinely, eventually show some growth. But I'd finally accepted that some people never take responsibility for their actions, and that wasn't my burden to carry. That evening, after everyone had left and Tommy was asleep in his new room, I sat on the back porch of our house looking at the stars. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. "Just wanted to let you know, the restraining order against Jennifer was made permanent today. No issues. You're officially protected from further harassment." I smiled, texting back my thanks. Another consequence enforced, another boundary maintained. The next day was Saturday, and Tommy had invited his entire soccer team over for a pool party. We'd spent the morning inflating floaties and setting up the small, above-ground pool I'd installed in our backyard. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, and Tommy was thrilled. As kids splashed and played, parents gathered on the patio. Carol sat next to me, watching her son cannonball into the pool with enthusiastic lack of grace. "I heard your family's house sold," she said carefully. "How are you handling that?" "It's their house," I corrected gently. "It was never mine. I just paid for it for a while. And honestly, I'm relieved. They're facing their reality now, and I'm building mine. That's a healthy way to look at it." She paused, then added, "My ex's mother tried to contact me last week. First time in 3 years. Wanted to know if we could work things out now that she needs help with medical bills. What did you say?" I said no, and I didn't feel guilty about it. Watching you stand firm helped me realize that boundaries aren't cruel. They're necessary. Her words echoed what my therapist had been telling me for months. I'd started seeing Dr. Reynolds shortly after cutting off my family, needing professional help to process years of emotional manipulation and to ensure I didn't pass unhealthy patterns to Tommy. Dr. Reynolds had helped me understand that what I'd experienced was a form of financial abuse, that my family's behavior fit classic patterns of toxic family dynamics, and that standing up for myself wasn't selfish, it was survival. She'd also helped me work through the complicated grief of losing family members who were still alive, mourning not their absence, but the healthy relationship we'd never had. As the party wound down and parents collected their exhausted children, Tommy came running over, dripping wet and grinning. "Dad, this was the best party ever. Can we do this every weekend?" "Maybe not every weekend," I laughed, wrapping him in a towel, "but we can definitely do it again. None of my friends have pools," he said proudly. "Well, Jake has one, but it's bigger, but ours is still cool." "It's perfect," I agreed. That night, as I tucked Tommy into bed in his new room, he asked a question I'd been expecting. "Dad, do you miss Grandma and Grandpa?" I thought about it carefully, wanting to be honest, but age-appropriate. "I miss the grandparents I wish they could be, but I don't miss how they treated us." "Do you think they miss me?" That question hurt. I think they probably do, but missing someone and treating them well are different things. "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm glad we have our new house, and I'm glad you don't seem sad anymore." "I was sad? Sometimes, when you thought I wasn't looking, but you seem happier now. You smile more." The perceptiveness of children never ceased to amaze me. He was right. I did smile more, laughed more, relaxed more. The constant undercurrent of stress from managing my family's crises was gone, replaced by the normal, manageable stress of raising a child and doing a job I loved. "I am happier," I admitted, "and a lot of that is because I get to focus on what really matters. You." 3 months later, Tommy's school called to inform me he'd been selected for the gifted program. His grades had improved dramatically, his teacher reported. He was more focused, more confident, more engaged. "Whatever changes you've made at home," his teacher said during our conference, "they're working." Tommy's flourished this year. I didn't tell her about the family betrayal, the cut-off support, the toxic family dynamics we'd escaped. I just thanked her and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Standing up for Tommy, protecting him from people who treated him as an afterthought, had given him the space to thrive. That Christmas, Tommy and I started a a new tradition. Instead of the obligatory visit to my parents' house where he'd been largely ignored in favor of adult conversations and my mother's judgment of my parenting, we volunteered at the local shelter, serving Christmas dinner to families in need. Tommy took to it immediately, carefully ladling mashed potatoes onto plates and chatting with the other kids. As I watched him show kindness to strangers, I felt proud of the person he was becoming. Someone who understood that family wasn't just blood, but the people who showed up and cared. On Christmas evening, as we drove home through streets decorated with lights, Tommy asked, "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa are having a good Christmas?" "I hope so," I answered honestly. "Even though they were mean to us? Even though I don't wish bad things for them. I just don't want to be around them anymore." He nodded, accepting this. "Can we have hot chocolate when we get home?" "Absolutely." Life moved forward. Tommy turned 9, then 10. Each birthday party was attended by friends who genuinely cared about him, parents who'd become part of our chosen family, and always, reliably, me. No drama, no last-minute cancellations, no hurt feelings or disappointed hopes. I dated occasionally, though nothing serious developed. I wasn't in a rush. Tommy and I had built a good life together, and I wasn't willing to bring anyone into it who didn't enhance what we already had. Marcus got promoted to deputy director and immediately recommended me for his old position. The promotion came with a significant raise, which I put toward Tommy's college fund and our savings. Financial security, real security, not the illusion of it built on supporting others, felt incredible. I ran into Jennifer once, about a year after everything had happened. She was working the register at a department store downtown. She saw me, her face hardening, but she didn't say anything, just scanned my items with mechanical efficiency and handed me my receipt. I almost said something, almost asked how she was doing, but I remembered Dr. Reynolds' advice about not reopening doors I'd carefully closed, so I just nodded politely and left. Through distant relatives, I occasionally heard updates about my parents. They'd adjusted to their smaller apartment. My father had found steady work doing landscape maintenance for a property management company. My mother had increased her hours at her retail job. They were managing, living within their actual means for the first time in years. Jennifer, I heard, had largely given up on influencer work and was working full-time in retail management. She'd moved into her own small apartment, was paying her own bills, was living an actual sustainable life, rather than the Instagram fantasy I'd been funding. I felt neither satisfaction nor guilt at these updates, just a distant sense that consequences had played out as they should, that people were facing their own realities, and that everyone was probably better off for it in the long run, even if they couldn't see it yet. On Tommy's 11th birthday, as we celebrated with his friends at an arcade, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "This is your mother. I know we haven't spoken in years. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. Really sorry. Not for losing the house or the money, but for how we treated Tommy, for making him feel unimportant. You were right to protect him from that. I hope he's doing well. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know." I stared at the message for a long time. It was the first acknowledgement, the first genuine seeming apology that focused on Tommy rather than their financial situation. Part of me wanted to respond, to open that door slightly, but I thought about the years of emotional manipulation, the countless times they'd said whatever they thought I wanted to hear to get what they needed. I thought about Tommy's question from years ago. "Don't they love me, Dad?" Maybe my mother had genuinely changed. Maybe facing consequences for 3 years had taught her something. Or maybe this was just another attempt to worm back into our lives now that the dust had settled. I didn't know, and I realized I didn't need to know. Tommy was thriving. I was thriving. We had built a life filled with people who showed up consistently, who treated us with respect, who understood that relationships require mutual care and effort. I deleted the message without responding. That night, as Tommy got ready for bed, he showed me a project he'd been working on at school. It was a family tree, but instead of the traditional biological connections, he'd drawn it based on people who matter. At the top was me. Branching out were Marcus and his family, Carol and her family, his teachers, his soccer coach, his friends. At the bottom, in small letters, were my parents and Jennifer, labeled simply Dad's birth family. "Is this okay?" he asked uncertainly. "The teacher said we could define family however we wanted." I pulled him into a hug. "It's perfect, buddy. Absolutely perfect. Good, because you're my real family, and everyone else who shows up. Standing up for ourselves, enforcing consequences, walking away from toxic family dynamics, it had cost us. Cost us the comfortable illusion of a happy extended family, the fantasy that blood relationships automatically meant healthy relationships, the hope that people would eventually appreciate what they'd taken for granted. But it had given us something infinitely more valuable: authenticity, peace, freedom, a life built on mutual respect rather than obligation. And most importantly, it had given Tommy a model of what healthy boundaries looked like, the understanding that love should never require you to sacrifice your own well-being. As I turned off Tommy's light and closed his door, I felt a contentment I hadn't known was possible during those years of supporting my family at my own expense. We had enough. We had each other. We had people who genuinely cared. And we had learned that the most important family are the people who choose to show up, not the ones who take you for granted. That was worth every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of standing firm, every consequence I'd enforced. Because in choosing to stand up for Tommy and myself, I'd given us both the greatest gift possible, the chance to live authentically, surrounded by people who valued us. And that, I realized, was what family should have been all along. Have you ever had to enforce boundaries with family members who took you for granted? Sometimes the hardest choice is also the right one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. And remember, standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Take care.